Alrighty. Video breakdown number 6. Wearing some of my swag that I got for Christmas. And Christmas is still officially Christmas until January 1st. All right. The holidays is all the way through, just for the record. So today we're going to keep the 5 minutes for the rants. And we're going to talk about all of the insanity that's happening in Minneapolis, or probably Minnesota, the entire state, but it's probably focused a lot in Minneapolis because that's like their large hub. So, where to even begin? Uh, there's a video going like mega viral right now on Twitter/X of this YouTuber that went to a whole bunch of businesses and pretty much showed that there's a lot of fraud going on for all these daycares and medical centers. There's like 14 medical centers in one building and stuff like that. So there is definitely a whole lot to be said about that, and the criminal element behind that. So the first thing I definitely want to say right off the bat is, even though for this population is the Somali population that's doing all of this, or the vast majority of it in Minnesota, this is not just a Somali population problem or anything like that. That has nothing to do with it. This is just the group of people that got caught doing the fraud at this time. There is so many levels of fraud throughout the entire country, and there's so many rackets going on, and there always has been. It's the United States of America. There's been, from bootlegging in the 1920s all the way up to today. There's always some kind of racket, and the longer a racket goes on, the more people get involved, and then when more people get involved, the more exposed they become, and then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so I can tell you from a law enforcement perspective, because I saw a lot of these comments on Twitter/X and all that, for places like the Quality Leering Center, who's supposedly gotten tons of money, but there's this is a big deal because there's been millions of dollars, if not tens or hundreds of millions of dollars, funneled to places like this. And but from a just street cop perspective, there's always a game going on with the criminal elements from people every time they get their whatever you may call it in your state, SNAP benefits, supplemental nutrition, link they call it in Illinois. But every time people get it, there's people outside selling their supplemental nutrition cards for cash, or going into these corner stores and doing all kinds of different fraud, fencing stolen goods to all these corner stores, where these corner stores turn around and flip it and sell it for a higher price so that everyone makes a profit. There's always a racket going on. There's always some kind of game. But honestly, I'm glad that these guys are going to get caught, at least to stop the insane amount of fraud. If nothing else, it at least limits it and stops it in its tracks, so that a lot of these guys committing this fraud have to change their game up, and hopefully a lot of them will get caught too. But the other thing that really bugs me is there's a lot of comments of like, oh, well, all these police officers need to get fired, and why aren't the police officers doing anything? You need to have, for something like this, for things that are pretty obvious fraud, you need to have, number one, a criminal complainant. So you need to have somebody that's going to attest to saying, hey, a crime is happening here. And then the police officers will need to further investigate. But for a place like even Minneapolis, I looked up the statistics for Minneapolis, and their entire police department is something like 600 officers. It's 600 police officers for Minneapolis, which is, I think, the largest department they have in the state. But my point is there just is not enough police officers to go around to just, when the police officers get called and they kick this YouTuber out of wherever he was, for trespassing. He was trespassing. So the people that called on him, they wanted him removed, and he was removed, and he was told to leave. And the police officers were doing their job because those people wanted him trespassed from the property. It's not the police officer's job to then go, oh, there might be fraud here. Let me open a multi-jurisdictional investigation. And there needs to be more substance than that. And I'm sure there will be. I'm sure this is the beginning of a whole lot of congressional investigations and a whole lot of other things. But for something of this magnitude, the feds need to get involved. Point blank, because this reminds me of like on a smaller scale. And again, I'm from Illinois, so I use this a lot, and this is pretty well known on the national scale. But like Jesse Smollett was one person who made a fake racism claim, hate crime, and then police investigated. And those police officers, the detectives that were assigned, and all the other police officers, they racked up like hundreds of thousands of dollars in overtime just for that one guy who was lying about that. For something like this, you need entire teams of people working. And so that's where the feds need to come in, whether that's IRS, FBI, a mixture of those, Department of Human Services, and a whole bunch of other people, the places where they're getting this money from. All of those entities need to get together to do an investigation. So this is not police just do their job kind of thing. That is not it at all. And so with that, I'm over my 5 minutes for my rant, but hopefully this adds a little bit more context into what's going on. This is gonna get way worse before it gets better, with a lot of YouTubers going and doing independent journalism and all this stuff that the media just doesn't seem to be doing. And I hope it's the start of a lot of entertainment for the next couple weeks online. So thank you very much for listening to my rant. Take care. I'm out. See you guys in the next one.